Anna Porter arrived at the bank in her car, a compact yet elegant vehicle that reflected her taste for quality without excess. She embodied professionalism, a perfectly tailored navy pantsuit, a crisp white blouse, a black leather handbag, and a small gold brooch in the shape of a feather, symbolizing her commitment to integrity and decisiveness. That day, Anna was heading to an important meeting at her bank. She had owned the institution for several years but preferred to stay in the background, entrusting public management to her top executives. However, today's situation required her personal attention. As she approached the main entrance, she encountered the security guard. A tall man with a strong build stood firmly by the glass doors, scrutinizing every person entering the building. His gaze briefly landed on Anna, assessing her as she approached. "Good morning," Anna greeted him politely, taking a step toward the door. The guard crossed his arms and moved closer, blocking her path. "Excuse me, ma'am, but this entrance is for employees and management only," he said in an official yet cold tone. Anna paused, realizing what had just happened. Her eyes glanced up at the sign on the glass door, which read in bold letters, "Staff entrance, for personnel and management only." She had used this entrance many times before, though usually accompanied by the bank's manager. Today, she had decided to arrive unannounced to observe how the bank operated in her absence. "That's precisely why I'm here," Anna replied calmly. "Please let me through." The guard frowned, giving her a quick once-over. Despite her elegant attire and confident demeanor, something in his expression suggested he wasn't taking her seriously. "Sorry, ma'am, but if you're not staff or management, you're not allowed to use this entrance. Customers need to use the main entrance," he added, pointing toward another set of doors used by visitors. Maintaining her composure, Anna asked, "May I speak with the manager? I'm sure he can confirm that I'm allowed to enter." "The manager is busy," the guard replied curtly, his tone growing firmer. "If you're a customer, it's better to address your concerns at the reception desk inside the main hall." Anna took a deep breath, keeping her irritation in check. She understood that this wasn't about following procedures. It was about something else, something reflected in the subtle condescension in his tone. "Sir," she began again, her voice steady but firm, "I'm not a customer. Please let me through. This is important." The guard took a step forward, slightly leaning toward her as if to emphasize his physical authority. "Ma'am, this is a restricted entrance and I can't let you through without proper credentials. If you can't prove your staff or management, you'll need to use the main entrance." Anna squinted, locking eyes with him. It was one of those rare moments when her patience was wearing thin. By now, people had started to gather behind her, some watching the situation unfold with curiosity, others whispering among themselves. She could feel their judgmental stares, but she refused to let the situation escalate into a spectacle. Taking a step back, she pulled out her phone and said, "Very well. Since you insist, I'll call someone who can clarify this matter." Her voice was calm yet authoritative, making the guard hesitate for a moment. She quickly dialed the bank manager's number and pressed the phone to her ear. On the other end, the manager picked up almost immediately. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. This is Anna Porter. I'm standing at the staff entrance, but your security guard believes I have no right to enter. Could you please explain to him who I am?" Her tone was professional, yet carried a hint of restrained frustration. Anna knew this issue ran deeper than it appeared. Anna put her phone back into her bag and looked at the security guard. His expression began to change. The confidence he had shown earlier was now giving way to uncertainty. Perhaps he was starting to realize he had made a mistake, but pride and stubbornness kept him standing firm. "Did you just call Mr. Carter?" the guard asked hesitantly, trying to maintain his official tone. "That's correct," Anna replied shortly, maintaining her steady gaze. "He'll be here in a few minutes." By this time, a small crowd had gathered near the entrance. A few people whispered among themselves, their expressions ranging from curiosity to quiet support for Anna. Others exchanged glances, clearly judging the situation. The tension in the air was palpable. "Ma'am, I'm just following protocol," the guard continued, nervously adjusting his uniform. "It's for the bank's security." Anna listened in silence as he tried to justify himself. Her face remained calm, but her eyes revealed a sharp, unspoken critique. She knew full well that this wasn't just about protocol. It was about something deeper, something unspoken that fueled his doubt about her presence. "Why don't you just let her in already?" someone from the crowd finally called out. "Yeah, can't you see she knows what she's doing?" another voice added with a tone of irritation. The guard glanced quickly at the growing crowd, his authority now slipping under their critical gazes. Feeling the pressure, he decided to double down. "If you really have the right to be here, why don't you show your credentials?" he said, his tone trying to sound firm but now carrying a trace of doubt. "All staff and management are required to have them." Anna, still calm, replied, "Because I don't have to prove anything to you. It's your job to know who I am if you work here." Her voice was steady and firm, and the crowd seemed to rally behind her. The murmurs grew louder, and the guard, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, began to look visibly uncomfortable. At that moment, the doors swung open and Mr. Carter, the bank's manager, stepped out. His face showed a mix of surprise and panic as he hurried toward Anna. "Miss Porter," he exclaimed, clearly flustered. "What's going on here? Why are you standing outside?" "That's an excellent question," Anna said, folding her arms across her chest. Her voice was measured, but there was a sharpness in her tone. "Perhaps your security guard can explain it better than I can." Carter turned to the guard, who now looked utterly lost. His face had turned red, and he seemed to shrink under the manager's glare. She's the owner?" the guard stammered, looking back and forth between Carter and Anna. "Exactly," Carter snapped, his voice rising. "This is Miss Anna Porter, the owner of this bank. She's the reason we all have jobs here." The guard took a step back, as if physically struck by the revelation. Slowly he turned his gaze to Anna, his eyes wide with shock and embarrassment. I didn't know," he mumbled, his head dropping. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. People exchanged astonished looks, some shaking their heads at the guard's behavior. Others looked at Anna with admiration for the calm and dignity she had displayed throughout the ordeal. Anna held his gaze for a moment longer, then spoke, her voice steady but firm. "Not knowing is a choice. And that choice," she said, taking a deliberate step forward, "is your problem to fix." Her words were precise, almost cutting, but they weren't meant to humiliate. Instead, they carried the weight of a lesson she hoped he would take to heart. Mr. Carter quickly stepped in, his tone apologetic. "Miss Porter, please come inside. I'll personally ensure this never happens again." Anna nodded curtly but paused before walking through the doors. She turned back to the guard and said, "I hope you've learned that appearances aren't everything, and that's something you should always remember." The crowd watched silently as Anna walked into the bank, her presence commanding respect. The guard remained at his post, visibly humbled and deep in thought, while the murmurs of the crowd slowly dissipated. Anna walked into the spacious lobby of the bank. The marble floors, mirrored columns, and glass walls gave the space an air of elegance and modernity. Customers sitting at the service desks momentarily glanced up from their tasks to see her enter. Everything about the bank seemed familiar, yet for Anna, this moment felt different. The earlier incident still lingered in her mind, and she carried its weight with quiet determination. Mr. Carter followed closely behind her, his face filled with concern. "Miss Porter, I sincerely apologize for what happened earlier. This is completely unacceptable, and I will take immediate action to ensure nothing like this happens again," he said, clearly anxious. Anna stopped in front of her office door and turned to face him. Her expression was composed but stern. "We'll discuss this later, Mr. Carter," she said firmly. "For now, I need to focus on the tasks at hand. Make sure the guard understands the gravity of his mistake." Carter nodded and quickly retreated, leaving Anna alone in her office. She paused for a moment at the door, allowing herself a deep breath. While she had handled the situation with grace, the frustration of being underestimated still gnawed at her. It was a feeling she rarely encountered, but one that always left a lasting impression. Downstairs at the entrance, the security guard, whose name was Michael, was still trying to process what had just happened. The weight of the revelation had hit him hard. He realized that his actions had gone far beyond a simple mistake. They represented a complete failure to uphold the respect and professionalism expected of him. The crowd that had gathered earlier had mostly dispersed, but a few people lingered, whispering among themselves. Some threw disapproving glances at Michael as they walked away. He stood motionless, his face flushed with embarrassment and regret. An older gentleman, one of the bank's clients, approached him. The man's voice was calm but carried a note of wisdom. "Son," the man began, "next time think twice before making assumptions. People aren't always what they seem at first glance. The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Michael nodded silently, unable to meet the man's gaze, and turned away, feeling the burn of shame and self-reproach. He clenched his fists, trying to push down the mixture of guilt and frustration that bubbled inside him. Shortly afterward, Mr. Carter returned to Michael, his expression serious. He gestured for Michael to step aside so they could speak privately. Michael braced himself for the reprimand he knew was coming, but Carter's voice, though firm, carried a hint of understanding. "Michael, let's talk," Carter began. Michael remained silent, preparing for the worst. "You made a mistake, a big one, but we're all human and mistakes are how we learn. Do you understand what went wrong today?" Carter asked. Michael nodded, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Yes, sir, I was wrong. I should have taken the time to find out more before making assumptions," he admitted quietly. "Exactly," Carter replied. "And in this job, that's especially important. We see hundreds of people every day, and it's our responsibility to treat each one with the same level of respect, regardless of how they look or who we think they are." Michael looked up, a flicker of resolve appearing in his eyes. "I'd like to apologize to Miss Porter," he said firmly. Carter raised an eyebrow, then gave a small, approving nod. "Good. But make sure it's sincere. She's not just a client, Michael. She's the owner of this bank. You need to fully understand the impact of your actions today," Carter said. Michael took a deep breath and nodded, ready to make amends. Meanwhile, in her office, Anna was preparing for her meeting when there was a knock on the door. Mr. Carter entered, followed closely by Michael, who looked hesitant but determined. His expression showed genuine remorse. "Miss Porter," Michael began, stepping forward to face her, "I want to apologize for my behavior earlier. I acted improperly and I let my assumptions guide me. That was wrong and I'm truly sorry." Anna studied him for a moment, her sharp eyes seeming to assess his every word. Finally, she nodded. "Admitting your mistakes is the first step toward correcting them," she said. "I hope this is a lesson you'll carry with you moving forward." Michael nodded gratefully, sensing the sincerity in her words. Though she had forgiven him, he understood that earning back respect would take time and effort. With that, Michael left the room, feeling a mix of humility and determination to do better. Anna returned to her work, but the morning's events stayed with her, serving as a reminder of the challenges that came with leadership and the opportunities to make a lasting impact. After the brief exchange with the guard, Anna remained in her office. Though her outward composure never wavered, the incident left an undeniable mark. She reflected on the scene at the entrance, realizing it was more than a personal affront. It was an opportunity to drive meaningful change within her institution. A short time later, the scheduled meeting began. In the bank's large conference room, senior managers, key employees, and a few invited experts had gathered. Everyone was aware that Anna's presence was rare, which added to the room's tension. Anna entered the room with confident strides, her focused demeanor commanding attention. Taking her place at the head of the table, she surveyed the room before speaking. "Before we begin today's agenda, I want to share an incident that occurred this morning," she started, her voice calm but firm. The room grew silent. All eyes were fixed on her as she continued. "This morning I encountered something that should never happen at this bank, or anywhere for that matter. I was stopped at the entrance by a security guard who believed I didn't belong there. Why? Because I didn't fit his idea of who should be entering through those doors." She paused, letting her words settle. The room remained silent, a few glances exchanged among the staff. "This is not a personal matter," Anna clarified, raising her hand to quiet any murmurs. "This is a matter of culture and values. Our bank must be a place where everyone is treated with respect, where no one is judged based on assumptions or appearances. Today reminded me that we still have work to do." Her gaze moved across the room, pausing on each face, ensuring her message resonated. "Mr. Carter," she said, addressing the bank manager, "I want comprehensive training implemented for all employees, including management. The focus will be on fostering a culture of respect, equality, and professionalism. We must ensure that every action we take reflects the values we stand for as an institution. This isn't just about business. This is about creating an environment where everyone feels welcome and valued." Carter nodded in agreement, his expression serious. The weight of her words was felt throughout the room. Anna continued, her voice steady and deliberate. Lastly, life's most important lessons often come through challenges, and today was no exception. I hope everyone here, especially those directly involved, reflects deeply on this experience and takes away the right lessons. Her words hung in the air as the room remained silent. Many nodded in agreement, visibly moved by her message. Meanwhile, downstairs at the security desk, Michael sat reflecting on his actions. He had spent the past few hours replaying the event in his mind, recognizing the gravity of his mistake. But rather than wallowing in shame, he resolved to change. He began reviewing the bank's protocols and took the first steps to better understand the people and culture he was tasked to protect. He knew trust could only be rebuilt through consistent effort. A few weeks later, Anna returned to the bank for another meeting. This time, as she approached the entrance, Michael was standing by the door. His posture was more composed, and his demeanor radiated professionalism and warmth. As she approached, he opened the door and greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Miss Porter. It's a pleasure to see you," he said, his tone genuine and respectful. Anna nodded, a slight smile touching her lips. "Good morning, Michael. I hope you're doing well," she replied. Their brief exchange symbolized the growth and transformation that had followed the incident. Michael's sincerity and effort to improve had not gone unnoticed. The conclusion of this story was more than just the resolution of a conflict. It was a powerful reminder of the importance of respect and equality. Anna understood that her role wasn't just to lead the bank, but to shape its culture and values. Through her calm strength and unwavering principles, she had not only addressed an issue, but set the tone for lasting change. Every employee at the bank walked away with a deeper understanding of how their actions could shape the environment for the better.